Hello and welcome to another Cutback Watchalong. I'm Flo Lloyd Hughes. I'm joined by Connor Roberts. And for those of you that don't know the Cutback, we are the only women's football in-depth analysis platform in the world. We're available at www.thecutback.com. Connor is our Manchester United writer, and we're doing more watch alongs throughout the season. Some of you might have watched our semi final for the League Cup watch along, where we had Max and Ishan, and we were talking through those two semi finals. Tonight, we're going to be talking through the Champions League playoff first leg between Atletico Madrid and Manchester United. It is a rematch from the league phase, a very, very chaotic and drama-filled league phase game, Connor. And I'm sure we're going to get onto some of the drama in that game. But we are minutes away from the kickoff in Madrid. And what we want to do with these watch alongs is kind of give you guys a bit of an alternative broadcast and feel like you're sort of joining the conversation as the game goes on. So wherever you are in the world watching it on Disney Plus, whether you're watching in English, another commentary, we want you to really get involved. Please get involved in the chat as well. So hello to John, who's already dropped a message in the chat. If you've got any questions or things you want to talk about, please let us know. Connor, first things first, before we get on to like United season so far before kickoff, what do you make of the team that Mark Skinner's put out in this first ever knockout game for Manchester United in the Champions League?
It's an interesting one. I don't really think he's had too much choice, to be honest, with the players that are available. There's no Rolfo, there's no Galton, there's no Toon, so he's kind of limited anyway. So there's no one else that can really play off the left. So I think it was always going to be Mallard. I think then you left with Turland or Schuller, and I think Schuller started the last game, so Turland was always going to start this one, I would imagine, and Schuller will start at the weekend. The big question for me was whether it was going to be Park on the right or whether it was going to be who it actually is in Vangerheim, and Park is kind of central. I didn't know whether he was going to stick Nelson back there or whether it was going to be Awujo again. But he has gone with Vangerheim. I'll reserve judgment to see how the game goes. I've not been a huge fan of that so far this season. I don't think she's quite looked comfortable out on the right as she necessarily would down the middle. So I'm intrigued to see how that plays out. And the back, I'm going to call it 6-7, if you will. So the back five, including the goalkeeper, and then Mia's Aaron Zagotti, that picks itself. Like if you're picking a Man United 11, those are all in there from the off anyway. So yeah, quite happy with that. Yeah, it's just that right wing, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see kind of 50, 60 minutes in, Park comes off over to the right, Vangerheim comes off, and Awujo and Nelson will go into the middle.
Yeah, that feels like quite a classic move because we know she kind of loves that inside drift and inside space. The good thing is there is a little bit of depth on that bench where you've got Schuler, you've got obviously Awujo, and Lundqvist, who we haven't seen tons of kind of in a starting role yet. But like that's decent depth for Champions League. Overall, how are you feeling about this game? Because I kind of mentioned the drama of the league phase. So Manchester United finished the game with 10 men, won 1-0, but they were clinging on a little bit in that match. Are you worried about some of that chaos coming back tonight?
I hope not. I think it was a bit. Well, it makes for a good game if if it was a bit like that. But I think it kind of killed what United had in the game. I thought United were actually pretty good in the away game. United have actually looked good in most away games, to be fair, so far this season. But yeah, so I don't know whether I necessarily want that. I think the red card I still think was a little bit questionable anyway for Janssen in the reverse fixture. But I think from this point of view, it's another big test. As I said before, United have looked, barring Wolfsburg, the Juventus and Madrid league phase games were good, solid 1-0 victories away, defensively solid. So I think if you're looking at it from a United point of view, I don't think that's too much of a worry. But I think overall, United should feel confident. I think the only thing that maybe will not set United back, obviously the Leicester game at the weekend was the first of 5 kind of big games, if you will. Obviously, you started off with a win at Leicester, then you've got the 2 Madrid games, a big game against London City at the weekend as well, then Chelsea in the FA Cup in a week's time as well. So it's kind of the start of this run, and then Chelsea again after the break as well. So yeah, if United can get through these 2 legs, I'm going to call it unscathed, but certainly get through into the next round, that's a massive success. I don't think many United fans would have snapped your hand off to get into the quarterfinals at the start of the season.
I wanted to ask you about that. So players just coming out on the pitch now. So obviously we'll chat about a little bit about any big moments in the game as they happen. But I think there's a bit of a split I find with United fans at the moment, and you'll know this more than anyone because you're really like a strong voice for the fans, but you know and understand the club and the team very well as well. So I feel like you're good at sort of like straddling both sides. But I feel like there's this battle between feeling like getting to this point of the Champions League is a massive achievement in the first time they've been in this competition, albeit only a few teams were dropping out of the league phase, right? So maybe if you had dropped out, that would have been a huge disappointment. Second in the WSL, final of a League Cup, obviously still in the FA Cup. There's actually a lot to be positive about. Add a quarterfinal to the Champions League, get through these two legs. I think that's a pretty successful season. But at the same time, the ambitions of this fan base, understandably, they want to be challenging for a little bit more than that, it seems. Obviously, now they've got that kind of FA Cup silverware under their belt. They want to be pushing more towards that final day title race rather than being as far behind as they are now.
I think, yeah, it depends on each fan's, I guess, expectation going into the start of the season, because I think from my point of view, I always put United in and around third, and obviously they're on track at the moment to do that, although the Arsenal result against City at the weekend actually is kind of done more damage to United, potentially getting into the top three than anything United done, to be honest, with how the top three or top four is now shaping up. But I think getting into the quarterfinals of the Champions League would be huge. Obviously, extra money as well from that side of things, but also I think from just the outside looking into United, there's usually a lot of negativity. There's a lot of that looking at the women's team over the last kind of few years, and I think it would just help that. It's another step, it's another milestone reached. But I think a lot of the fan expectation comes from the 22-23 season, to be honest. Reached the FA Cup final, obviously didn't win it in that one, but looked very competitive against an extremely good Emma Hayes Chelsea side. Then you go into the league, it went all the way to the last day. That's genuinely the first time that I felt like United are actually going to win the title, winning it late at Villa away, and you think, oh, this is going to be it. So ever since then, the league form hasn't been as strong. Even last year, made it into the top three, but it wasn't convincing, I wouldn't say. I don't think it was necessarily like, oh, wow, United have absolutely, stormed the league kind of thing and made it into the top three. It was like, okay, they've just got in, which at the end of the day, that's all that matters. But yeah, this season, I think it's been good. I don't think it's been exceptional. I think it's kind of somewhere in the middle. Of where it currently sits, but a win today, and then you go into the game against Bayern. Who knows?
Yeah, I feel like Bayern, I mean, we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves, but I feel like Bayern is so unpredictable. You don't know which version you're going to get, and they are definitely beatable. I also feel like for Manchester United fans, and this is what I can really sympathise for, and you've definitely written about on the Cutback this season, is on a results basis, things are really, really looking pretty good. But it's actually more some of the manner of these performances, some quite negative approaches to games. I think we definitely saw that in the 0-0 with Arsenal at the Emirates, right? And they obviously came out on top in the semi-final about a week later. But again, it was a slight backs against the wall. They were a bit more proactive in the way that they wanted to play on the break in that game, and they came away with the win. They're in a cup final. But would you say that's also another sticking point for fans is, yeah, okay, we're getting through results, but actually for the last few seasons under Skinner, there's been a frustration about the way some of these performances are coming about and maybe the lack of entertaining football or big score lines, dominance in games, which is maybe what Manchester United fans want to see.
It's the big game mentality, I think, is the big. You just mentioned Arsenal away. I think we're Arsenal there for the taking. I think at the time, yes. Obviously, since then they've looked a lot stronger with the Chelsea and City results. So it's a little bit difficult to look back on that one. But I think overall this season, United haven't looked amazing in the biggest games. I think in the Champions League, it's looked pretty good against PSG. Madrid, Juventus, and the first one against Valerenga as well. But the Wolfsburg and Lyon games, United looked way off it, particularly against Lyon. Lyon didn't even get out of first gear, and United were nowhere near, I don't think, on that note, which was kind of expected. I wouldn't expect United in the first Champions League voyage to go and compete with Lyon. That would have been quite something. But in the games against Chelsea, I actually thought the Chelsea game, United competed really well. I think 1-1 at home, and most United fans left that thinking, like, it should have won that, and competing with Chelsea on that front. The Arsenal at home game, it was just, again, similar to the away one, just a bit. I think if you're a neutral, you're like, come on, someone do something. Whereas both sides, it was a very tactical game. Both of them were very, very tactical, but not great watches. And then City away, I think, was an absolute disaster. So United haven't looked amazing in big games this season. And I go back to the 22-23 season. That was the big strength. That mini league, if you want to call it that United have almost forced themselves in the top four. So you're Chelsea, Arsenal, City, United. United in the 22-23 season looked very good. Double over Arsenal, competed with Chelsea, beat City, and then drew with them away. Had big wins in there as well, and then beat everybody else. So it was kind of like that's what pushed them up the table. Whereas this season, they're kind of hanging on in there, but it's kind of also because of other teams' results. Because Chelsea are dropping points, because Arsenal are dropping points. It's not because United are beating the teams around them. It's because others are dropping, and that's why City are just so far ahead.
Yeah, I agree. We're underway in Madrid. And I know you spotted this before the game kicked off, Connor. The pitch is looking a little bit ropey, but we've got a very early goal for Manchester United.
I actually missed who that was. Was that Elizabeth Turland? What
it was Turland, yeah. I mean, that is first 3 minutes of the game. They are starting very aggressively. That is an amazing start for Manchester United. We'll get back to the pitch in a minute. Good turnout, actually, Connor. Do you know how many fans have travelled? Because it does look like a really good turnout.
I will find out and let you know on that one. I don't actually know. I would imagine if it's anything like the previous one, it would be a couple of hundred, which is decent going.
Which is really decent. I enjoyed the Mallard and Turland haircutting celebration as well. No context on that. No idea what it is, but they always come up with some great celebrations. And it's a brilliant finish. Mallard plays the pass into Turland, and then she takes a great touch and finishes. They've become quite a good double act this season, haven't they, Connor? Not just for the celebrations, but they actually work really well together.
Well, it's something that was lacking. Turland kind of dropped off form at kind of the back end of the year, but in recent weeks she's looked almost back to her best. I put this on X the day that she's looked incredibly strong. I think a big part of that is her link up with Mallard at the start of the season. Those two are linking up incredibly well, and for whatever reason that kind of broke down towards the back end of the year. But recently it seems to be picking up form again, and I think that partnership is very important for Turland's form, more so than Mallard's, I think. But Turland's just playing with unbelievable confidence at the moment. I think you see that kind of finish. It's a couple of touches, similar to the one against Leicester, quick feet, and just unleash the shot. And she's always had that in her locker. It's just more the confidence side of things and getting more involved in the game overall. And I think that sets her apart.
I feel like when she first signed, there was a lot of focus on her being quite a static number 9, and they just kind of wanted her sort of like in and around the box and be ready for crosses. And she didn't actually operate in a particularly big area of the box. It was like, quite static and a few yards out. Whereas now it feels like she's either got the confidence to, or is being trusted to take more shots in different areas, rather than just be a cross and tapping and header merchant, which is kind of what she'd become a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that's the key thing for me for Turland to take the next level. It's getting more involved in the overall game. I think at the start of the season, she was crucial, really, to anything United did from a pressing point of view, because obviously you want your striker to lead the press. You got to press from the front, and Turland was a massive part of that. And like I said, at the back end of the year, that kind of dropped off. I didn't know whether it was fitness or whether it was just the way we were playing him. To be fair, the whole team had dropped off anyway. But for me, for Turland to take that next level, I want her in the game she's not scoring to be involved as well, and that's certainly what she's doing in more recent weeks. She's getting the goals as well at the moment, but I think she's more involved in the game overall, and it helps the team because the way United are setting up, United are can be very one-sided at times. A couple of years ago it was very right side heavy. Now it seems to be very left side heavy. That's a great header by Riviere. Sorry, I got slightly distracted by the cross Quinn. That's good defending from Jane Riviere. So United need a very strong focal point as a striker, and United have not really had. Russo was never really out and out striker, and I think Turland can be that, and I think we're starting to see glimpses of it again.
Yeah, she's got 5 goals in the WSL this season, and I don't know if this includes tonight. Is that her second goal in the Champions League or first goal in the Champions League this season?
It depends whether you count the qualifiers, because technically she's on about, well, she scored 2 hat tricks in the qualifiers, so it depends whether you count those or not. She's on about 10 or 9 or 10 or something.
I don't know if they do, but we can for the sake of this conversation, because I remember those very impressive performances. But you mentioned the left-hand side for United, and tonight it looks like not only are United going to be attacking a lot down that side, but Atletico Madrid are going to want to use that side as well. They obviously know that it's very hard to get past Jade Riviere, and that side is going to be kind of locked down. But in the only bit of sort of ball and passage of play that they had, they kind of, tried to get down that right-hand side. But very interesting first kind of minutes there. I wonder if Atletico are going to really struggle to get hold of the ball, because they can't quite commit to a very aggressive press, and United are already finding gaps. And a second goal, they go within 8 minutes. That's 2-0 flagged for offside, it looks like.
I'm sure that's muted as I was saying that. Yeah, the flag's gone up for that one, I think.
Flag's gone up. So Turland does not get her second goal.
But it comes when you look at the position of she's not offside there. I don't know what to say. It's the second
it's the header across. Yeah, there you go.
I was going to say, but if you look at the position of Jess Park, she's again playing central, and this is why I kind of advocate for her playing more centrally, because she's playing centrally obviously today, but usually when she starts on the right, she's in these kind of areas where she's wide left, and you don't really want your right winger wide left. You kind of want the on the right. That's why they're starting there. Whereas for this one, that is incredibly tight, to be fair.
Yeah. It's hard from the angle as well that they've got on there to really see if she might have been on, but I think they're checking now. Citizen Jam has said it's not a watch along for me, no Disney Plus and no radio commentary, so it's a watch along of a watch along. So we'll do our best to try and give you a watch along of a watch along. Very sorry that you can't watch the game properly tonight, but we'll try and do and chip in with some best descriptions when we can. We're just waiting for them to restart the play. Yeah, they're doing a long old VAR check. Obviously, we've got VAR for these knockout games.
It does look slightly off, I think.
They're taking their sweet time, as they always do with VAR. They're not showing a better camera angle replay, so we're not seeing any replays right now, so it's very hard for us to know. On the initial angle, when the ball's headed across, is it Vangerheim who heads it back across, Connor, to Turland? It's hard to know from there if she's on or off. And at the moment, they're just kind of showing us the referee having a chat, and that's it.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what.
Yeah,
it depends on the angles in the stadium. I don't know how it set up, but.
And now we've got Atletico Madrid players having a jog around, because that's how long it's taking. Okay, final decision. It is offside, and they are going to play on. Don't know why it took so long, but that's VAR for you. So Manchester United only 1-0 up, not 2-0 up. 1 goal for Elizabeth Turland, not 2. But it has been all Manchester United in the first 10 minutes. Atletico Madrid are just playing it long and turning over the ball very quickly. They're not pressing particularly aggressively. They're committing in quite big numbers. I would say what they're doing isn't very well organised. So they're leaving United a lot of space to play with. And I feel like it could be a potentially long night for Atletico Madrid at this point. But we're only 10 minutes in. So I think
United will want to get this done in the first leg as well. As I mentioned, those games that are coming up, United are not going to want to go into the game next week kind of with it hanging in the balance. And this is another great move from Matt. Zagotti's always involved. I think anything good that United do, Zagotti's always kind of there or thereabouts.
Another chance just there for Melvin Mallard. So that's like 3 very good chances if you include the one that was offside. In these first 10 minutes, they're always coming through this left-hand channel, finding a pocket of space, trying to create something. The offside header was a great pass from Jess Park that got headed across. Turland was offside. So they are trying to work their way through that space in behind. but a really good start, really positive start. And I agree with you, Connor. I feel like also maybe that's been an issue for United this season is sometimes they haven't killed off games when they could have done.
Yeah, I think again, the season's kind of in two halves for me. When you're looking at it from, I guess, when United season started in the Champions League qualifiers to kind of maybe the October break, United looked strong, attacking wise, looked very fluid in attacks, were pressing ridiculously high and fast and aggressive. And then whether, like I said, whether the games kind of caught up to them early on and it was kind of an energy thing, I'm not too sure. But the second half of from October to kind of December, like that kind of dropped off. And United weren't killing games off and weren't scoring those. United were, and I think maybe still are, one of the highest in terms of big chances created in the WSL. But our conversion rate from that side is one of the worst. I think the last time I checked, United were about 8th or 9th in terms of big chances converted in the WSL. So from that side of things had to improve. But with the form of Turlin, I think a big part of that is the introduction of Leah Schuller. I think that can't be underestimated how much, just because before that, the goals, it was Turland. We had Turland and that was it. So to have someone else who can take the pressure off if Turland's not scoring, they can look to the bench and go, well, this is a player who scored hundreds of goals. There's not as much pressure on, it's got to be Turland or nothing. And I think we're starting to see that a little bit with United.
Yeah, is that signing just as much about competition as anything? And obviously resting players in this like very busy back end of the season. But to have that depth, is it also about not just taking the pressure off, but like creating a little bit of competition? Because maybe we did see that a little bit with Mallard and Turland initially when Turland first arrived and Mallard first arrived, there was almost like a play one or the other. Like Mallard would play in the games where Skinner would have approach where he's going to kind of try and hit it long and have Mallard running in behind. That was like the go-to structure. And then Turland was going to be more of a kind of like traditional centre forward and they were going to put a lot of crosses into the box. Whereas now it feels like actually they've got building something that's a little bit more fluid.
Yeah, and I think again, like the midfield is a big part of the United's attack. Like, so whether that's Jess Park drifting into the middle, or whether that's Zigotti, or whether that's Miyazawa as well. I asked Mark Skinner this question the other week about Zigotti in particular because in the early parts of the season she was kind of picking up positions right wing almost, kind of invaded into Jess Park's space out on that right side where she would normally operate. And when she signed, that wasn't really, she's a deep line midfielder, and it was like, hang on. So I think that has added fluidity, the word you just used, into United's attack for that very reason, because then you've got multiple options. You've got midfielders pushing in. It kind of creates an overload, whether that's out wide or through the middle. Oh, that's a big mistake from Janssen, but it is clear. Anna Sandberg out for a corner. It's always happens every time you come to me for a question.
The biggest action happens. Yeah, it was a big mistake. Who was that? Was that Janssen? It's kind of Janssen swing and a miss. The pass is played. A very basic pass attempt is played by, I don't know who it was from Atletico Madrid, pass forward. Janssen has a kind of swing and a miss. The ball runs underneath her, and Sandberg luckily comes to clean up the mess. But Atletico Madrid do get a corner played out to the edge of the box, and it's a pretty poor effort that's blocked on the edge of the box and a bit of a hopeful follow-up cross. So that is the most nervy moment that United have had all game because they've been pretty comfortable, to be honest. But it just shows kind of switch off for a minute. And obviously in that game they played in the league phase, they did have 10 players for a lot of that game. But there were a few moments where they were really like clinging on for dear life, Connor.
Yeah, there was a lot of last-ditch kind of defending and blocks, big saves from Fallon as well. But I think a big part of United getting over the line in that game, Leah Galton, who came on, I thought was exceptional in that game as well, kind of coming in more of a deeper position as well. So it was certainly on the edge, but I don't think too much. I think when you've got a keeper like Fallon Joyce in between the sticks anyway, you can kind of get away with it a little bit more because you know that 9 times out of 10 she's going to make the save. But United are not going to want to be wanting to be doing too much more of that. It was a bit of a Mistakes are starting to creep in, I think, a little bit with United. Even though United are winning games, I think, recently since the turn of the year, mistakes from the back line are starting to creep in. We've seen a couple from Riviere, I think. When you think about, obviously, the away game at the Emirates, had a couple there, and then obviously it ended up getting sent off. And we've seen Meyer, Letitia make a few errors in recent weeks, and Janssen tonight. It's starting to creep in a little bit. I'm not quite sure why. Could maybe put that one down to the pitch. Was there a slight bobble maybe before it got to Janssen?
I mean, to be fair, maybe the pitch does not look great. It's obviously also got lots of sand on it as well. It's a classic case of, I mean, it's been very wet across all of Europe. It's been terrible. It's been raining pretty much every day in the UK since the start of the year. So I imagine they've had to put a lot of sand on this pitch basically to make sure it's not too soggy, and you see that with how bobbly it is right now. And even like the Emirates pitch was suffering with this recently. So even the best pitchers out there are having this issue. I want to have a word though, Connor, on a player that Manchester United fans know very well, which is Vilda Boarisa, who obviously was at Manchester United and left in a kind of, I guess, a slight frustration of it. It never really worked out for her, but she arrived with a lot of promise, a lot of expectation. She's got so many good friends there still, and actually she's had a decent time at Atletico Madrid since she arrived. But like, what happened? Why did that sort of not quite work?
There's so many facets to this. I think I think I ended up writing about it in the end for the Cup actually about a year ago. It's a really tough one to talk about because Vilda was a player who didn't want to leave United. I think she would have ended her career at United. She did everything that she needed to do to get to United. She didn't force a move, but she waited. She went to clubs for short-term deals for 6 months just to wait for the right opportunity to get to United. Obviously, because some of the leagues are out of sync with the WSL, so she made sure she was fit enough to make sure she'd come to United. And it just didn't work for whatever reason. We obviously don't see training. We don't see what goes on behind the scenes, but I don't quite know why she wasn't given more opportunities. Now, obviously, she was coming up against a midfield that got to second in the league, as I mentioned, that 22-23 season. Skinner was very reluctant to make any changes, I think, in that season. And you could argue rightfully so. The team was winning every week. So do you want to disrupt that too much? I think when you're winning every single week, you're pushing Chelsea for the title. I would argue Vilda's a quality enough player that she could have come in for any of those midfielders. It was Ladd, Zelen, and Soon at the time. So I think there was options for her, and I think United would have done well with her in there, to be honest. I think there's still a very good player in there. And yeah, I think it's one player I think United fans look at. Obviously, there's a couple. I think it depends who you ask, but certainly if you ask most United fans who they miss, I think Vilda would be in a lot of people's top 2 or 3 at the very least. Simply because it was every time she played, she was exceptional, but just wasn't given more opportunities than what she got, and was eventually kind of, use my words carefully here, moved on because they wanted to get Irene Guerrero in the other way, and then that didn't work either, and then she ended up leaving, having no kind of game time either. So yeah, bit of a tough one. It was kind of just a poor dealings all around, but she looks happy and is playing well in Madrid now. So I think from her point of view, it was a good move.
Yeah, I guess it sort of worked out in some ways for the best, but it's a position as well that Manchester United actually could do with. That's the area of the pitch where they probably have the biggest need, right? Is in midfield. Turland, we're just getting replay of that earlier.
So we're finally seeing the offside now.
They gave us a line for a very delayed VAR line replay of that offside. And Benitez actually for Atletico Madrid, I think that will be their first shot of the game, but very off target. It was kind of basically heading for the pitches behind the stadium. But I reckon they'll probably register that as their first shot of the game. But yeah, I think it will be frustrating for United fans to have a couple of transfers like that for players. I mean, a player, Jay-Z, right, who kind of arrived having lots of success in Liga F and lots of success on the international stage, very talented player. And again, it just doesn't quite work. And then you get this kind of really long, protracted transfer saga. But she was a player I was really excited to see at United and hopeful that she could it was going to work for her. And obviously, like, it can't work for every single player, but I thought that was another kind of unfortunate situation. And it's tough at these bigger clubs because you do come with pressure and expectation, and she already came with a name, which I think makes it that much harder. But do you think that's become a bit of an issue sometimes for Manchester United to kind of like manage those squad and the personalities when people want to play and expect to play?
I think it's a tough one. The Jace one was an interesting one because my kind of understanding at the time, well, it still is, because just what I heard in and around the time, United obviously were very frustrated is probably the right word on the way the Russo deal was kind of handled. It was kind of like delayed all that season, and obviously she went obviously to Arsenal. So United wanted a big signing, a big name to kind of paper over the crack. Sounds harsh on the Jay signing, but certainly to move the media attention away to being like, oh, United can spend money here. This is a big name coming in from Barcelona, and kind of shift that focus away from Russo. So whether it was the right signing for the club overall, I don't quite. Well, obviously in hindsight, looking back, it wasn't. But at the time, it was kind of like, okay, how's she going to kind of fit in? But the first few games, she was exceptional, I thought, for United, and kind of hit the ground running. But I think it was that end product, I think, for her all the time. It just never quite clicked. I don't know how many goals she ended up scoring in the end, but only 2 in the league over the couple of years she was at United. It just never quite worked for her for whatever reason. Obviously, there was clearly something or some issues going on behind the scenes, whether that was not settling in England. I think she's spoken about that as well. She clearly didn't like necessarily being over here as well. So I think that was a definite issue. So yeah, it was another one of those where I think for player and for club, I think just to move her on and get the best for her career as well, not just for United as a club, I think was certainly the right move. But again, it was a saga that I don't think needed to happen, to be honest. There were so many opportunities to avoid that. And everything that happens from both sides, I don't think the club are entirely to blame, but there's certainly some things there. But on the whole, I think United are certainly getting better at recruitment. I think you look at the players that have come in over the last couple of transfer windows; they're in the team, they're playing, they're performing well. I'm trying to think of the last signing that maybe didn't necessarily work. You probably are looking at that summer of Guerrero, Jace. Then who else was it last summer? Gabby George, Fallon obviously are still in the team. Emma Watson's out on loan, and Mia Zauer is obviously still in the team as well. So on the whole, I think they've worked. I think the big ones stick out more because they're big names, and it's not like they don't play enough. They don't really play at all. There's another chance from Mallard kind of goes out for a goal kick there as well.
Yeah, nice bit of play from Jess Park. Quick feet on the edge of the box and a really kind of short, nice pass to Mallard, but she can't quite get there. And the goalie does well, actually, to kind of guide it out of play. Just before that, I feel like it was Atletico's best few minutes of the game. There was a bit of a mistake from Fallon Tullis-Joyce, a poor kick that kind of invited a bit of pressure on her defenders and invited Atletico Madrid to get on the ball a little bit. And they're getting a little bit more possession now. I'll just have a look at the stats. It's still Manchester United with 52% possession, but it does feel like Atletico are getting a bit more of a foothold in this game after United completely dominated the first sort of 10, 15 minutes. Still 1-0 to Manchester United, but I feel like maybe a bit more calmness coming after what was just like a all United first 10, 15 minutes. Connor, on the kind of transfer situation, it does feel like as well that the summer window and the January transfer window, with what you said about, some weird signings during that time, and maybe it was a bit of a reaction to losing so many big players and feeling like the club had to sort of make statements in response in who they signed. It does feel like the last January and summer window have been really smart recruitment from the club, filling gaps, filling a need. And the 2 players for me, both summer signings that I think have been game changers, are Jess Park and Zigiota Elma. Obviously, Zigiota Elma is a very experienced player, but coming in off the back of a very good Euros. Like, we all knew how good she was, but I thought she was one of the best players of the tournament, and key in Sweden's late run. And then you kind of get that Jess Park on top of that, and you've got a seriously good kind of like midfield core building. We know Park obviously, can end up playing a lot higher in those drifty positions that she likes, but that the lineup's looking so much stronger now than it was a year ago.
Yeah, it's interesting with the Zagossi one in particular, because I actually broke that exclusive last summer about United being interested in her, and the reaction, I remember it being quite negative, to be honest. It was like, why United looking at her? This is not a player United need. She's not United level, and now I would say most fans say she's one of the most important players in the team. So I think those are the kind of signings that you need to make as a club if you're going to. Not every single signing is going to. You can't just go out there and buy ready-made players all the time. Now, don't get me wrong, Zagossi's experience and everything else, but she kind of went under the radar, and that is good scouting / recruitment, because it's a player that is not a massive name, but is going to benefit your system very well. And I think from that point of view, they did very well. I think they've been very smart. You look at the Grace Clinton, Jess Park deal. It wasn't necessarily a swap, but it kind of an unofficial swap, because both teams did receive a fee either way. That worked for both. Clinton wanted to leave. She wanted kind of more money on the contract. She was going to get that at City. Jess Park was available from the other way around, and it's worked for both. Both teams and players got what they wanted from that point of view. More game time for Park in a position that she wants to play. So United have definitely been better. I think when you're looking at Rolfo as well, adding Champions League experience, and Schuller as well for the same reason. Lundqvist, I mean, United have needed a right back for about 500 years. Ever since the inception, United have had about one right back every season. So it's about time United have finally addressed that and got two very good right backs. So the recruitment's been good. And I think when you're looking at the summer, Skinner spoke about 3 to 5 signings again in the summer. If they get all of those right, there's no reason why United really can't push on and start competing again right at the top and pushing the title for the long term, because the team is there, or the core team is there, I would say. They've got some players still for the future. But, when you look at players like Schuller and Rolfo and these kind of players, they're not players to win the league in 5-6 years' time. They need to be winning the league really in the next year or two, or at least competing for it anyway.
Yeah. We've got a good question from Sinead I want to get to in a minute. But it's interesting because so many players are getting dragged around in this game tonight. We're seeing Sandberg really be dragged across and leaving a lot of space on her outside. And Mallard is having to drop really deep to try and kind of rescue her. A couple of times now, Mallard's had to pick up the ball on the edge of United's box, and she's covering so much ground because then she's having to kind of travel out again and press, or kind of play a bit more of a linking pass, which is the sort of pass you would expect Miyazawa or Ziggy Olmo to be playing, not necessarily Mallard. We know that Sandberg likes to bomb really high, but she's coming and kind of having to drift so far inside, and I don't think it's actually to be a bit of an inverted fullback. I think it's just because she feels like she needs to cover, and that's giving Atletico a bit of space on that right-hand side. I think United need to be a little bit careful. They've just given away a free kick in that area, but everything, I mean, I'll try and get a heat map up from SofaScore when we get to half time. It feels like everything in this game has been down that right-hand side, whether it's United attacking or Atletico Madrid attacking. They've got their free kick on this right-hand side now, about 30 yards or so out, ball into the box and goes out for a goal kick. So no danger there for United. Although, what's the referee doing? Is she going to retake the free kick? Some chaotic refereeing happening tonight.
Yeah. The Champions League usually leads to that, though.
Yeah, it's true. They took the free kick, went out for a goal kick. They've been allowed to take it again. Header goes out for a goal kick. So no issues there. Yeah, I don't know what you've made so far of that bit of space and the patterns that we're seeing on that side of the pitch.
Yeah, I can't work out whether it's by design or whether it's just kind of play. We saw Skinner in the break when there was a player down a few minutes ago, kind of really going at Zigotti, kind of pointing to the right area of the pitch, whether that's to cover the right side a bit more, so the players don't, so Sandberg doesn't have to drift all the way across. I'm not too sure. But I think you're always going to get that anyway. With Sandberg and Riviere, they're never just going to sit back all the time. They're going to be advanced, so you're going to leave gaps. And I think that's why Mallard's tracking back is very important. But it's also why you need Zigotti. And I mean, you're looking at Zigotti now. She is the furthest player forward, pressing the Atletico Madrid centre back. And there's the turnover of possession. I think that's what Zigotti offers you in the middle, is that energy and just running like that and pressing from the front. But my point was going to be, that's where you need Miyazawa and Zigotti on the same wavelength, because those two cover an awful lot of ground to back up and protect the back four. And when you've got your fullbacks as high as they are, you need those midfielders to cover the gaps as well.
Yeah, Sandberg's got so high up the pitch in this game, and I feel it feels like a bit of a trap for me. Just gonna have a look who is on this right-hand side for Atletico that keeps kind of dragging her in. Number 23, Diaz. She is kind of lowering her a little bit because she's taking this inside pocket and trying to drag Sandberg inside, and then making sure that there's space on the outside for Atletico to exploit. And even though this has been their best period on the ball in the last sort of 10-15 minutes, they haven't really done much with it. But from a Manchester United perspective, they don't obviously want them to get too comfortable, because in the first 10 minutes of the game, they look really unsettled and look quite nervy, and United were definitely sort of capitalizing on that. So Sinead asked a good question, which I think has been a really big challenge for United actually ever since they came up. Academy players getting regular first team minutes. Probably one of the other big factors, Connor, of the January transfer window, especially when you and I were looking at things, is like, which young player is going to go on loan to where? And that was sort of the main dialogue once the Schuler and Lundqvist signings had been done and Vangerheim signing been done. It very much became, where are these young players going to go who are still contracted to United, but basically haven't broken through. Looks like Emma Watson's having a great time in Mexico, so that's a bonus. But why? I mean, this is, I guess as well, we should prefix by saying that this is not an issue that is only siloed to United. I think Arsenal have struggled with this as well. Chelsea, we do see them being able to get those younger players to break through a little bit more. Lexi Potter's been getting some first team minutes. She played at the weekend. Chloe Sowi's played in WSL and Champions League. Obviously, Aga Beaver-Jones is like their best example of sort of fully breaking through. City, we saw them have to do it because of injuries. But with United, why do you think it's those players aren't getting the time? Is it that the academy's not at the same level as some of these other WSL sides? Is it that Skinner doesn't trust these players? Like, why do you think it's so much harder for them?
It's a really tough one to answer, because I've been trying to think of a better answer than what I'm about to say, I think, over the last kind of couple of months, because I will start off by saying I think there's definitely an issue, I'm going to call it that, with the pathway. I'm going to just, obviously we're talking about United, so let's talk about United. There's definitely an issue with the pathway, because I don't think there's a single player that has come through. You could argue the likes of Toon and Gabby George and these kinds of players that were there pre-2018. Well, obviously, yes, but I mean, I'm talking about the ones that have come through the academy since then. None of them have stayed in the team. Carrie Jones looked like she was going to, then went away. And you're looking at other players. Married Griffiths is currently on loan. She kind of came in and has gone on loan, didn't stay in the team. Alicia Ahern was another one that kind of came into the team, thought she's one, she's going to break in and stay there, and then didn't. So there have been players that have come in and you think they're going to stay there. Now, Saf Middleton is obviously the one that is still there, is still obviously has had minutes this season. But as a goalkeeper, when you've got Fallon Joyce ahead of you, you're not going to play all that much. So it's definitely an issue at United. But the one thing I will say, there's been a lot made about the academy players that have left United over the last kind of couple of years, and obviously they've gone elsewhere. And every time it comes out, there's a big online reaction. Oh, another one that United have let go, another one United have failed, and so on. But I think when you're looking at where these players are going in the careers they've had so far, obviously they're still in their career, they're not necessarily lighting it up where they're going. They're not going to another WSL team and lighting up. They're not going into Europe or into the NWSL and really kind of tearing it up. I think Kira Barry will be a big interest. Well, that's one I think United maybe have got wrong. But no one's really kind of made United. I don't know. I'm trying to think the best way of putting this. They've not like proved United wrong yet. I don't think there's been a single player that's gone like, oh, you're going to regret this. Now there's still time because a lot of these players are still young, but there's certainly none there. Emma Watson's the big one. Now, don't get me wrong. I know she didn't come through the academy, but she was bought young and a player for the future. That's one I really hope United get right because there is a seriously talented player in there. I know that there's been a lot of permanent interest in her. And I think if she doesn't necessarily see the pathway at United, there is a possibility that she would move on, rightfully so, for her own career. So I think that's one to keep an eye on. Next season's massive for her, obviously after this loan that she's currently got in Mexico. But yeah, it's certainly not just an issue with United, but I think there's a couple of things. I think there's a clear issue with the pathway, I think, at United. I think there's an element of the academy level is such a drop from the WSL level that the players that then come through are going to struggle unless you play them a lot. But unfortunately, in women's football, there's not loads and loads of games that you can throw them into, especially with this new rule next season with the League Cup. If United do make it to top three again, they're not going to be in the League Cup, so you're not going to have those games to put the kids into either. And when the pressure's on, United and particularly Musk, is probably one of the most scrutinised managers in clubs in the league. So from that point of view, there's a pressure to win every single game. And is it worth? I don't know. I would argue you could still do it. I think when you're winning 2-3-0, you've got a couple of academy players on the bench. Certainly at the back end of last year, we were seeing Griffiths and Layla Drury. I know she started playing a bit more recently, but you've got those kind of players on the bench. And Mark Skinner was bringing on Rachel Williams and these kinds of players. And it's like, but she's leaving in January, and that's when it gets a bit like, come on, you've got the academy kids there. You're winning 2-3-0. Why can't you give them 15 minutes at the end of a game or 20 minutes? And you're bringing on players that are leaving in a month's time anyway. That's where it's frustrating. But yeah, there is definitely a big gap between them. And loans are massively important. You're seeing pretty much every club, I'm sure, put game time clauses in these contracts for the loanees. That's why nearly all of United's got recalled. Evie Rabtron came back and was sold. Newell came back and was loaned again. Watson came back and was loaned again. Jess Simpson's the only one that stayed on a loan, and she's smashing it as well. So from that side, it is tough, and it's tough for them as well because I said there's just not enough games to put them into. So I wouldn't be looking at the first teams as much. I'd be looking at the academy. How can they make the academies better and the academy league more competitive to get the overall league better and the standard better to start feeding them into the first teams?
Yeah, I would agree. And I also think there's an opportunity.
It's a big chance for Mallard here, by the way. That's another great finish.
Mallard getting United's second. Atletico not happy because they think that there's a foul, but I think it's a bit of a reach. She cuts inside. She's on the edge of the box, on the left-hand side of the box. She cuts inside, bends it into the far corner of the goal, and the Atletico Madrid defender goes down as she kind of chops it back.
Can they review this? Will it go back, do you think? Or is there a...
I mean, who is that? Loris is down.
It doesn't look a foul to me.
I don't think it's a foul. The pass is played. Mallard takes a touch back, and because Loris goes down, Mallard's got acres of time and space. I think I don't know if she wants the foul or she's actually just sort of jammed her knee, and it's just an unfortunate situation because I think there's very minimal contact. So it might be that she's injured, but it's actually not as a result of any challenge. That's kind of what it looks like, more like, because she looks in some pain, but I don't think there's any chance the ref's gonna pull that back because there was such minimal contact, and it was a great finish.
But again, it's that link up of Park kind of drifting through the middle, laying it into Mallard. Again, is another player that's looked, solid again off the left hand side. That's what you want from Mallard. There's been a bit of inconsistency from Mallard this season, kind of decision making, I would say, in front of goal. and we're starting to see a lot better decision making from her. From that point of view, and that's a massive goal as well. Just before half time, United 2-0 up now as well. It's looking good from a United point of view. Going, obviously, they're still under 45 and another full game to play yet, but it's certainly looking strong from that point of view.
Mallard looks really confident this season, actually, and she just feels like she looks more confident. I feel like we'll just get another replay now. Yeah, I think it's just unfortunate way that she's almost like twisted her knee, the Atletico player, and she's not actually necessarily calling for a foul there. It's just she's almost like slipped a little bit in trying to get the ball off Mallard. But yeah, I think there's a real confidence to Mallard this season, which it's not that it's been missing, but she just feels like she's really enjoying herself. And maybe when she first came, she was sort of still trying to figure out what her role was going to be. Just having a look now, and she's got 5 goals in the WSL, and she has 3 goals in the Champions League. Just feels like, yeah, she just looks so confident now, which I think is great, just to see a player who's really enjoying her time and also just works really hard. She puts in a lot of miles on the pitch. And building that relationship with Turland is massive. Rita has asked, Connor, but I don't know if we've got any updates here. Have United signed anyone on a pre-contract like Arsenal have? So what I think Rita's referencing is, of course, lots of reports around Arsenal getting very close to signing Georgia Stanway, who is going to be leaving Bayern Munich this summer. So obviously, if you are set to have a contract expire, you can sign a pre-contract agreement before your contract runs out. So there's lots of obviously links between Stanway and Arsenal. Do you think there's anyone that United have their eyes on?
It's a bit tough one to answer. There is. I can't actually give names though. I mean, the short answer to the question is no. United haven't signed anyone, not that I'm aware of anyway. If other people know them, fair play to them. But I'm not aware of United that have signed anyone on a pre-contract yet. They are definitely interested and have been interested for a couple of months for players they were hoping to get done this window that will now become summer targets because it makes more sense, particularly with some of those being out of contract. So I think, yes, in terms of United are probably looking at those, but I'm not aware of United signing any. I think midfield is definitely an area United will look at this summer. They were desperate to get one this window. It obviously didn't quite happen. So I think in the summer that is definitely an area United will go. And there's players' contracts that are kind of up in the air that will force United into making more signings anyway. When you're looking at Lisa Nelson, there's obviously had her option triggered. Ella Toon's contract is still kind of rumbling on whether what's going to go on there. Not that anyone can imagine her leaving, but it's a possibility. She's not signed anything.
And they have exercised her option though, haven't they, Connor?
Yeah, so it's a year in the summer. So she's out all. So Turland, Nelson, Gabby George, and Ella Toon are all out of contract in 2027 now, but with no option. But what I was about to say then, United have made it very clear that they're not going to let players run down their contract. So I think, depending on what the impression they get from the players, if they're adamant they're not going to re-sign, United will move them on, as we've seen in the last kind of couple of windows from that side. So it's going to be a big summer. This window is big enough. I think the summer's going to be huge for United, but it sounds really cliche, I guess, but it's really going to depend where United finish. Top 3 can change everything. If United can get into the top 3 in the Champions League again, that changes everything.
Well, that's the thing. It's very hard to plan with how tight the race for the Champions League is this season. I mean, forget obviously trying to win the WSL, but there is going to be a big team that misses out, and that could play a huge part in your transfer window. We are into 3 minutes of added time in this game. United 2-0 up, goals from Turland and Mallard. United with the ball on the edge of the box, but Atletico want an offside, but they're not going to get it. Miyazawa on the edge of the box tries to play a reverse pass, and Atletico have the ball back. Before we kind of get into half time assessment, and I know David asked a question about Jim Ratcliffe and his very ignorant comments. So maybe we'll touch on that at halftime, Connor. More so, I think, on the impact that Ratcliffe's kind of negative impact he's having on the women's team. But what have you made of this first half United performance as we kind of the clock ticks down to halftime?
It's been very professional, I think. There's been a couple of Atletico Madrid opportunities to beat United. Have certainly, I think, had the better of the chances. You think of the goal that was ruled offside. Mallard had one, before the one that she got, before the one that she scored. There's been a couple of other opportunities as well. Like I think United have looked very strong. I think they'll be happy with this. The only worry for me is it's what I said before the game. Barring that header for the offside goal, I don't think we've seen Van Gaal in the game at all. United have not really attacked down the right, and I think a big part of that is because of just I just don't see how that's going to work with her out on the right, and I think that's maybe why United have looked a little bit left side heavy, because I don't know. That's going to take a bit of getting used to, I think, for her. I'm sure she'll know herself. She's not a right winger. She's just not a natural position. So that's the only area of, if you want to call it a concern, I guess. But I think United have looked comfortable. There's not been a moment I've looked at and gone, "Oh, Madrid are on top here." It's been relatively straightforward, I think, for United so far.
Yeah, they've massively been in control. There's been this one ball through the middle that Atletico have tried a few times into Janssen, but it's not really come off. There was only the one time when Janssen had a swing and a miss and created a bit of an opportunity, but every single time United have dealt with it pretty well, to be honest. For reference, Vangerheim's had 12 touches on that right wing, and Jess Park has had 21 in that left-sided midfield role. Mallard's had 23. We've seen her drop deep a little bit, and Turlin's had 15. So that kind of gives you a little bit of context on how the rest of that kind of attacking group is getting involved in the game, and Vangerheim is a little bit isolated on that right-hand side. But to be honest, when you look at kind of Jade Riviere, she hasn't had tons to do because everything has been happening on this right side of the pitch, on United's left, on Atletico's right. So yeah, any position on their other side is being pretty quiet, to be honest. Probably the only slight nervousness, Connor, is what we talked about earlier, and what we've seen in tiny flashes this game is these like defensive mistakes, whether it's some, a dodgy kick by Fallon Tallis-Joyce, or lack of focus, or those like short mistakes. It's fine in this game, I guess. I think United do look like the better team in this clash. But once you get through to the quarterfinals, if you get through to the semi-finals, those teams like Lyon, like other sides you might play, like Bayern, if you play them in the quarterfinal, they will punish you for things like that.
Yeah, that's going to be the big test for United coming up. I think, as I mentioned, those two games against Chelsea in there as well. You know what they can do, albeit look a little bit shaky themselves at the moment. That's something they're going to want to. I'm sure Mark will say that to them in a half time. But yeah, you don't want to keep doing that. Don't get me wrong, you're not going to go through the whole game without making a mistake. Everyone makes a mistake somewhere on the pitch during some point in the game. But yeah, when you're the last line of defence, certainly the Janssen one, where it's a nothing pass really, into her to kind of clear, and it almost looks like she had too much time to kind of trap the ball down, and it kind of just went under her. You can't be doing that. And the Fallon Tallis-Joyce one. I mean, Fallon's an exceptional goalkeeper, an amazing shot stopper. She's not been great kicking the ball out anyway. That's never been her strong suit at United, so that's not a massive surprise to me. But yeah, overall, the mistakes have been not costly, and I don't think they've been dangerous in what they've done. I know that there was a turnover possession from the Tallis-Joyce kick, and there was the chance for the dribble from the Janssen mistake, but I don't think they were necessarily like close opportunities for Atletico in that sense.
Yeah, let's have a look at what FOTMob, which uses Opta data, what they're ranking on the XG for those, if they have it. I'm not sure they've got it on this on the FOTMOB stats. They might not have it for Champions League. But 0 shots on target for Atletico, yeah, which I think we talked about some of those kind of like hopeful long range efforts. We've had a couple of comments about Van Heimen at right wing, and it does feel like trying to get her into this team is going to be an ongoing issue. Something that also I noticed, Connor, in that Subway Cup semi-final was she got kind of pushed off the ball quite easily. I felt like she wasn't particularly strong and was struggling a little bit in those more physical situations. She's obviously still very young. And a lot of players, when they come to the WSL, they do talk about how physical it is, and that's a big adjustment for them. But that was something, I don't know if it's like, because she's quite tall, but I don't know if it's something where it's kind of a lack of confidence or it's actually a lack of physicality. But that was something that really stood out to me in the first game that I really watched her play in.
I think it's a bit of both. I think it's a massively different league. The pace is different and everything's different. You mentioned the physicality, but I think from that side of it, it's maybe a confidence thing as well. She's coming in with a big reputation, there's a lot of clubs after her over the last kind of couple of years, so there's a lot of interest in her from that point of view. And I personally don't see. I said this at the time when United were kind of linked to her, that I don't quite see the need for a player like her when you've got Turland and Schuller. They're very, very similar. She's a striker that likes to operate in the 18-yard box, and we're kind of trying to morph her into this right wing player, and maybe that's why she looks, I guess, weaker on the ball, because that's not really her game. Running at players, that's not really her game either. You kind of want her in and around the 18-yard box and just put the ball into her. Whereas now she's being asked to track back, she's being asked to run at players, she's being asked to put crosses in, and it's kind of a completely different game. So yeah, I'm intrigued to see how that works, because I asked Mark this question when Van Gaal was signed about where he sees her kind of best position and the qualities that she can bring, and he mentioned about when United play, they like having the two striker system. So the right winger, if the ball's out on the left, the right winger comes in as a second striker. We're not really seeing that, apart from the one opportunity that we mentioned with Jess Park. When the ball was out on the left, Van Gaal was central next to Turland, and obviously the ball was headed down. If they're going to do more of that, then I can see it working. If you're going to ask her to be a kind of out-and-out winger and run at players, you're just asking for trouble. That's just not going to be her game. And she's going to look like a poor player when that's just not what she is. That's not her. She's an exceptional player. I just don't think the system necessarily suits her currently in what's kind of going on. How long before you realise you muted?
Yeah, I didn't know how long that was going to be. I feel like you want to see her as well be able to have that space to run in behind, and we haven't yet seen that yet, just where she is positionally. An earlier question we had when we first kicked off the chat, which is obviously the big topic of the day in Manchester United land. And there's always something big going on in Manchester United land, but obviously Jim Ratcliffe's comments yesterday to Sky News. The club have since come out and released a statement, very positive statement, a good response about, their fan base, about the importance of diversity at the club, in the city, etc. This isn't the first time we've seen Jim Ratcliffe make headlines around Manchester United and Manchester United women. But Connor, we haven't really seen the women's side of the club kind of be dragged into it yet. But do you ever worry about the kind of Ratcliffe era and the negative impact it's potentially having on the women's team? Because I actually feel like we've had these pockets where we've seen, for example, him not go to the FA Cup final, or him basically to say that he can't be asked with the women's team. But I feel like over the last year or so, the women's side of the club have just kind of like got on and done it. Like they've just sort of kept their head down, kept themselves away from all the other chaos, and sign players where they can, get the money in World Sevens, like do all this other stuff and keep themselves away from it. But the more that he's in the public eye and attracting a lot of negative publicity, it might get quite difficult to not be harmed by some of these comments as Manchester United women. I don't know what you think about that.
It's a tough one. My view on it's always been, if he stays away from the women's team and puts people in place that do care about the women's team, then you can kind of, not allow it, because his comments certainly in recent days, I think United have done the right thing in putting a counter statement out to that, because I think everyone knows the thoughts and the comments and everything else. But I think from that side of thing, I would just like to see actual people, and I think there is. I think the current structure of the women's team definitely care about the women's team, but I think that the higher up you go, I think the less it's of interest and the less they care. To be honest, I think is the right way of putting it. So it's always going to be difficult, but I don't understand it from two reasons really. Because even this is going to sound really counterintuitive, I guess is one way of putting it. But even if he doesn't, well, it's obvious he doesn't really care for the women's side. It's basically free PR to come out and. That sounds really bad way of putting it, but if he just came out and showed support for the women's team or spoke about it or attended the game, it's free.
I know exactly what you mean. It's like supporting the women's team is a very small thing to do that can get you lots of good publicity, and it looks good for a very low price. It's like it's cheap and easy words of solidarity and support, but the fact that he so actively is the opposite is kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, and that's what I mean. He's almost like goes out of his way to say things that he knows is going to be a bit inflammatory, that's going to trigger the right people, because then it maybe gets the headlines and everything. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm sure he hasn't wanted the attention he's had over the last 24 hours with kind of everyone going out, hence why he's backtracked a little bit and put out a half apology, I'll call it that, earlier on today. But I think I don't get it. I really don't, because there are a lot of people that care about the women's side in the football club in high positions at United. The problem is those people are not public facing and not at the forefront, so you don't hear from them. They're kind of people behind the scenes that are doing the legwork that you don't see to keep the club running, to put the things into place to make sure that the money keeps coming in and the budgets keep going up and that the team are supported. Not just financially, because I say this all the time, you can chuck a load of money at something all you want. If the support structure is not there, it's just going to fail. So putting those in place as well. There are definitely people there. The problem is Jim Ratcliffe's voice is the loudest. It's the one that gets the headlines because he's media facing, I guess. And that's what people are going to focus on. So I definitely think it's damaging. I think we've seen that over the last couple of years, and it must be for the players as well. I'd be intrigued to. They're never going to come out and talk about it in public, because they're just not going to in that sense. But I can't imagine it's nice for the players to hear either from that side of things. When public, you mentioned the FA Cup final, not attending that one was crazy in my opinion, because again, just to show face, just to show that you're there and to be present, I thought was just a massive letdown, to be honest. And I think, don't get me wrong, there was Ineos representatives there at the final, but that's not enough. As I said, that's not the public-facing figure that needs to be there in the nicest way possible. So, yeah, it's not a great look, but I guess if there's any, I'm trying to think of the right way of putting this, any praise to that, he says what he thinks, I guess, and stands by it. If he doesn't care for the women's team, he doesn't try and hide the fact that he doesn't. He doesn't, and he doesn't show that he does either. So he kind of stands by what he believes, I guess. But it's not great. And I think I'm glad United put some kind of statement out for the last 24 hours. But yeah, it's kind of dragging United's name into something that needs to be nowhere near.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting kind of how it rumbles on, because also, I mean, without getting it too much into the sort of like Ineos era Manchester United weeds, because I'm sure you've spent enough time talking about that in your lifetime, Connor. But it's also interesting because, he arrived with all this promise, mainly just for the men's team, right? Of like, we're going to do this, we're going to revolutionize the sporting side. And none of that has come to fruition. Thank God Michael Carrick's kind of restored a bit of belief and positivity to the men's side over the last couple of weeks. That's been the only saving grace, really. So all of the big chat that was promised to the fans has not delivered. And actually on the women's side, they've arguably managed to achieve more with an FA Cup, financially getting, was runner-up, wasn't it, World Sevens in the end, but getting like a pretty good payout with that, qualifying for the Champions League for the first time, finishing pretty well in terms of WSL finishes. So they've kind of done their thing with little attention, reward and focus. I guess we'll have to wait and see how long he even hangs around at the club, because all these promises, nothing's materialized. So I wonder, if that project will come to an end eventually, before or after the huge, mad new space station stadium gets built. Connor, who knows? We had another question as well from Rita, who was asking which team do we think loses out on the Champions League places in the WSL. So obviously City, they're going to win the league, but out of then Manchester United, Chelsea and Arsenal, who is the team that misses out? It is so tight when you look at the table below Manchester, below City, basically. I don't know. I've still kind of yet to fully give my assessment of how chaos the Chelsea chaos is, because I do think they've been a little bit unlucky in the fact that they've played Arsenal and City in those back-to-back games and lost. I think the Paul Green timing is far from ideal, and that doesn't help when you're sort of navigating a difficult result period. But I do feel like they will probably put it right. So as it stands, you've got Manchester United on 31 points, Chelsea on 30, and Arsenal on 29. Arsenal look really good right now. They're in a good run. They're very high on confidence. But as we know, they are a team that thrives on those runs of form. And when it dips, it can take a while before they build it back up again. Looking at the table right now, thinking about who Chelsea still have to play and who Manchester United still have to play, I do worry United, from a United point of view, as we're talking about United tonight, if they could be the team that misses out on the basis of the teams they have left to play. Because that Manchester derby, is it 29th of March at Old Trafford? That is going to be huge now, because they have to try and get a result to get Champions League.
Well, I said at the start of this stream that Arsenal result has been more damaging. The Arsenal beating Manchester City last weekend has been more damaging to United than anything United have done over the last kind of couple of weeks, because City win that, United have got a gap to Arsenal, and there's kind of points to spare. Then now you're looking at Arsenal like could be in a bit of trouble. And Arsenal's remaining games, they've got the bottom six, and then I think one other, I think it's the North London derby potentially as well in there. So. And most of those are at home, which Arsenal are usually pretty strong at as well. So you wouldn't expect they're going to drop too many points. Whereas United, you're looking at the fixtures. You've already mentioned the Manchester derby. The last game of the season is away at Chelsea, which United have never won at. Go away to West Ham in March as well, where United have only got 1 win in 4 for the last kind of 4 seasons as well. Quite a lot of draws net. Away to Spurs, which is not going to be an easy one. So United have by a country mile got the toughest running to make the top 3. Now, the second half has just kicked off. I would have say that. I worry for United now, to be honest, because I just think those games with we spoke about United not attacking down the right, literally right from the off in the second half. United attacking down the right with Jay Riviere, and this could be a goal here.
Well, she's done well to get. She's done really well to get there.
In the end, but yeah, attacking down the right from the off there. It's forced a good save. Vangerheim, was that Vangerheim? Was that Turland? I can't work out who that was there.
It was a touch. It looks like a touch from Turland to play it into Riviere, who has to run about 40 yards, and then she's not really got many options, so she decides to take the shot on, and it's a good save in the end from the Atletico keeper Gallardo. It was a tight angle, but she obviously thought, well, Mallard's not going to get there, so I'm just going to take the chance myself. But yeah, second half kicks off. First opportunity is down the right-hand side after we were saying there was none of the ball.
There's a bit of worry here as well. Sandberg's currently down. Now, I will just say on Sandberg, she's looked a little bit off the pace in the last couple of weeks and hasn't looked fully fit. So this is a bit of a worry, I think, for United fans, that she's down again. She's been down a lot in the last kind of couple of games. You could argue some of them may be tactical, but this doesn't look good for her.
She was also she went down earlier in the first half, so she's obviously not 100%. She's also got bandages on both her knees.
She's been struggling ever since the Arsenal League Cup game. She kind of walked past the away section and she got subbed off, and she was limping in that one as well. So she has been struggling for a little while from that point of view. But she seems to be getting back up.
Who would you look to bring on in that situation? Can Lundqvist play down the left?
She could, but I wouldn't be putting her there. It was probably going to be Gabby George that would come in. And even then, I think if Gabby George comes on, I don't even know whether Gabby would play left back, because it is Gabby George that's coming on. So 2 minutes into the second half, there's a forced change. But I'll be interested to see whether this is Gabby George at left back or whether he puts Janssen at left back, because we have seen Dominic Janssen slot over to the left in recent weeks as well.
Yeah, we've seen Gabby George play at centre back a couple of times this season, haven't we? Especially when Janssen was suspended, didn't she slot in during that time?
And played very well there. I think she's been a solid option at centre back.
Yeah, not good. Sandberg being helped to the bench, coming off. United have a corner as a result.
It's a really good delivery as well. Kind of
Riviere chance.
Bit of a goal scramble, really.
Saved on the line, but looks like Atletico Madrid have been given a free kick for a foul on Gallardo. But there was a great chance. Mallard couldn't quite connect. And I think it was Turland with the follow-up chance. Well, Vangerheim, actually, she has a shot, cleared off the line, and then the ref very kindly gives Atletico a free kick. So yeah, that's a bit of the only sort of downside from the evening so far, I guess, from United perspective, is potentially losing Sandberg, who's been huge for them so far this season. Gabby George has come on and is currently slotted in at left back at the moment. We'll keep an eye in case that position moves, but she's definitely playing left back for the moment. Janssen playing just inside of her, and then Mère Letitia. You've obviously got Jade Riviere at right back. Siobhan said, worried about this game after last times, but it seems it didn't need to be. Yeah,
sorry to interrupt. I'm surprised you're not there, to be honest. I've just realised who that is. I'm surprised she's not there, actually.
Well, I will say there's been the Disney Plus cameras have come to them quite a bit. The United contingent, who look like they're having a brilliant time in Madrid. I'm very jealous. But it looks like there's quite a strong contingent out there. Atletico with a bit of a shot there just inside the box, but it's a pretty easy save for Fallon Tuller's choice in the end. But yeah, so far we are only 5 minutes into the second half, but United are 2-0 up. Pretty calm game. They haven't conceded that many good chances. Obviously, they haven't had the chaos of what happened last time and going down to 10 players and having to navigate that. The only thing they're having to deal with is this Sandberg injury. But yeah, we've seen so far in these first few minutes of the second half them try and play a lot more down the right. What's probably frustrating is Turland coming to play and link up with Riviere more than Vangerheim, even though she should really be in those areas.
This is why watch-alongs are always a bit of an interesting one, because if anyone just saw my facial expression then, if anyone who's watching the game as well, Mallard just put a brilliant cross into Vangerheim, who kind of looked to head it towards goal, but it kind of went backwards towards the penalty spot. It was a bit of a strange header. I don't quite know how she managed to do that. It was more impressive the ball went the opposite way to the one I'm sure she was intending, but yeah. So that's what that was about.
It was a bit strange.
But yeah, United have looked strong, I think is probably the right way of putting it. I'll be intrigued to see whether United actually really go for this now and try and really kill the tie off, or whether they sit back on this, 2-0 away from home. It's not too bad. I'll be in two minds here, whether to fully go for it, knowing that you play London City Lionesses in 3 days' time, or do you just sit on the 2-0 and try and bring that back to Manchester to kind of win that next Thursday at LSV?
Yeah, LSV is a good place to try and protect a lead. as well, because United do have a good record there in general. So I feel like they'll feel confident if the score does stay like this. They'll feel confident going into that game, given how they've played tonight, and given as well, if it stays like this and Atletico are chasing the game next week, I'm sure United will relish having that space to try and exploit on the break, especially with Turland, with Mallard, being able to try and play in that space in behind. But what they'll want to do as well is not lose any more players to injury. Because there's already
That'll be the big one now. I think that's certainly a worry, because that did not look good for Sandberg. As I said, she's been struggling for a little while, but to go off 2 minutes into the half is not good. United are certainly not going to want. I think that's something we spoke about pre-game as well, about this pitch and it being a bit of an injury concern. Not great. So if United can get through to, I think most United fans, I'm sure, will take that for now. 2-0 unscathed. No more injuries.
It's not quite the Real Madrid Arsenal pitch last season when Arsenal went into the second leg of that quarterfinal 2-0 down after playing on a swamp. But it's not great. Siobhan said, with LCL in mind at the weekend, I'd make some changes. I can't see United losing either this game or the home leg, so it wouldn't hurt. Yeah, I do wonder. I mean, the 60, 65-minute mark, that tends to be the optimum, doesn't it? So I wonder if we'll start to see a bit of movement on that bench. I just remind people.
The problem is, from a United point of view, there's only one attacker on the bench.
Yeah,
and that's Leah Schuller. So
you've got Leah Schuller, you've got quite a few defenders. You've got Millie Turner and Hannah Lundqvist, Simi Ujo and Lisa Narsland. So not a lot of attacking variety, but in terms of giving some midfielders a little bit of rest, I suppose you could potentially take off Jess Park and drop a little bit deeper. Park with a great effort that just sneaks past the post there. And I mean, we spoke earlier on the stream, Connor, about how much of a kind of revelation she's been. But I think for me, the biggest thing that Park has influenced for Manchester United is having that confident ball carrier, because there are moments where Ella Toon can kind of do that. We obviously know that she's out with an injury at the moment, but the way that Park can play with the ball at her feet and the space that she can open up, there's actually very few players in the WSL that are like that. And to have that and be able to use that as an asset on your team is massive.
Yeah, she's been just every week. There's more clips of her and more skills that she's done in the games, but more importantly, it's just taking the game by herself a lot of the time and kind of running the show. As I said, she starts out on the right most weeks, but then will drift in field into the middle, off to the left, and she's kind of here, there, and everywhere. And we're just seeing a replay of the shot she just had a second ago, just wide of the post. Some of the goals she scored this season, some of the assists as well. Like, she looks exceptional. She's transformed this United team, and you need a player like that, because one of the key strengths United had I go back to it again, the 22-23 season, was being able to progress the ball very quickly from defence to attack. And a big player in that was Honor Batia, actually, on the right side, being able to transition very fast from right back into midfield, and then United would attack very fast from there. And with Miyazawa and with Park, United have got that now, which is not something they've had in the last couple of years, because midfielders maybe haven't been as mobile or as quick to receive the ball off the back line, whereas now you see Miyazawa go really deep to pick the ball up, and it's straight into Park every time, and then Park can create and do something from there and drives the team 10, 15, 20 yards further forward. And when she's got that low centre of gravity as well, being able to turn very fast in and out of space, again, as I said, it just drives United up the pitch, which is not something United have had since Honor left a couple of years ago, because it's kind of different kind of players that United have recruited over the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, it's absolutely massive. So United with a corner at the moment. Looks like Atletico are going to bring on a blast from the past. Catherine Kuhl, who lots of people may remember from Arsenal. Didn't quite work out for her at Arsenal. She then went on loan, I think, to Everton, then to Roma, and is now at Atletico Madrid. Atletico actually do well with that corner. Turlin wants a foul, but they do well to clear it because it was in a dangerous area. We've got just over half an hour to go, and we're going to see a double sub from Atletico now. This is a bit of a roll of the dice, I guess, to see if they can try and get something from this game. And I do wonder then if we'll see maybe Skinner react and adjust off the back of these.
I don't know what Skinner can do though to make. I think I would imagine we'll probably see Lisa Nelson come on at some point in the next kind of 10 minutes or so, and that will probably be for. I would imagine Vangerheim will go off for Nelson's, and then Jess Park will go back out to the right. And then I would imagine Turner will go off at some point for Leah Schuller. Other than that, I'm not too sure. Simi Awuja, you can maybe bring on for one of Zigotti or
do you think he might try and take Park off? There's been games where he's sort of tried to manage her minutes a little bit, or do you think there's no one really like for like, so it would maybe force United too deep if they did take her off?
I would like him to, but I don't think he will. Simi Awuja was the only player that could do that. But outside of that, I just don't think there's the options, to be honest. If you're looking at if Ella Toon's obviously available, then yeah, you could probably do that. But there isn't anyone else really who can play in that position. Simi Awuja's the only one really that could play in that kind of role. But it's different kind of play. You're not going to get anywhere near the same levels because Simi's just a different player to what Jess Park is.
So Atletico just made those changes, trying to find a way back into this game. So far, they have really struggled with ball progression and chance creation as well. Just those 4 shots, 1 on target, but it was a pretty tame effort for Valentin's choice. And Manchester United have had a lot of good opportunities, mainly in the first half. One from Jess Park and Jada Riviere in this second half, but they still look pretty comfortable. The other issue as well, Connor, just watching right now on this right-hand side, Riviere's having to do a lot of work to hold on to the ball. But positionally, it just feels like Vangerheim doesn't quite know. Like, I don't know if you just saw that there. Riviere's sort of like pushing her where she wants her to be. Atletico Madrid won a penalty for absolute nothing push.
You're not going to get that.
You're not going to get that. A nothing push from Gabby George on the back of Sariegi. You're not going to get that. And
is this for Nelson change that I was just talking about that we were going to see within the next 10 minutes? If this is for Vangerheim, I think I've got this pretty spot on.
Let's see what comes up on the board. So Narsland is coming on. I like those bucket hats. It's those Stone Roses bucket hats. They look great.
Yeah, so I believe they've been handed out by United.
Oh, Brit, I was wondering. Everyone seemed to have them. So that's like... Yes. So it looks like, is it Mallard coming off then?
No, so it is Vangerheim.
Okay.
So it's the change I thought, and then Jess Park will go out to the right.
Vangerheim coming off. Lisa Narsland coming on. Makes sense. It's been a bit of a tough game. Just before that substitution, the referee waved away a very ambitious penalty shout from Atletico Madrid. But I was just saying how, and we've just seen Jess Park now come over to the right-hand side, how Riviere was trying to sort of usher Vangerheim into the position that an area she wanted her to be in, which kind of says everything you need to know really about how it's not quite clicked for her. And it's not her, natural ideal position either, which doesn't help because you're trying to blend into a new team in a position that you don't ideally want to play in. But it is kind of, she doesn't know where she needs to be. She's trying to drop deep. She wants to get the ball. She wants to get touches, but then that means she's out of position. Then Riviere's kind of playing ahead of her in the end, which we've seen in any of those attacks.
Riviere's really bombing forward in this second half.
She really is, yeah. She's coming really centrally as well.
Do we think they were watching the watch-along at half-time? Because everything we spoke about, the right side not attacking, all of the United attacks have come down the right side in the second half. with Jade Riviere picking up
in the change room, he said, guys, no half-time team talk. We're putting this on. a bit of an ambitious effort from Riviere. She kind of went for the inside-out bend of a shot. It was quite far wide, but I appreciate the idea. And she drifted really inside for that. I mean, they obviously must feel like there's opportunity and space to be had. Atletico are trying to up the tempo a little bit and get a bit of a spark going in these last half an hour now that we've got, but it's hard to see where their chances are going to come. But it's interesting, United have pulled the trigger on that first change, and Narsland hadn't really had a touch.
Quite sure what a free kick's been given for there, if I'm being totally honest.
Well, it looked like
Atletico Madrid free kick for those of you.
It looked like Riviere went through the back of, is that Alexia? Yeah, it looks like she went through the back of her. I mean, I can understand it. It's on the. Oh no, it's not Alexia's. Ottoman. It's on the. I've seen him give him. Doesn't seem like the harshest one in the world, but it's obviously in a very dangerous area. It's left-hand side, few yards outside the edge of the box. Manchester United aren't happy about it, but they're going to have to defend this free kick, which is probably going to be an opportunity. Atletico Madrid were
the concern for United, I think, if for those of you watching, if you look at the middle of the, no pun intended, if you look at the middle of the park there where Jess Park and Zigotti have stood, the height difference in the middle, because a lot of the United height is in the wall in Janssen, Mallard, and kind of Turner. That there's a bit of a height disparity in some of those matchups if Atletico Madrid decides to kind of play this in towards the back post area.
Yeah, are they going to float it in, or are they going to try and have a shot? It's not a bad angle. Boerisa is over it.
Oof. That's one hell of an effort. I think it's a big save from Tullis Joyce as well. It's either been pushed onto the bar or it's hit the bar direct.
Yeah, she's done really well there.
Former United, it's a good save. So it is actually pushed onto the bar by Fallon Tullis Joyce from Vilda Boerisa and then headed away. I think it's by Letitia out for a corner.
That was a great effort.
That was almost similar to Vilda Boerisa scored a free kick for Manchester United actually against Durham. For those United fans watching back in 2023, I want to say it was.
For the real League
very
Cup
similar
heads.
But that's the danger. You know, United 2-0 up, goes to 2-1, then you got a nervy last 25 odd minutes here to play. So it's kind of reminiscent of the first game, just with United having a couple more chances in terms of the first game in the league phase. I mean, where United started off really strong, got the early goal, had a few chances. This game obviously got 2 up rather than just the 1. And then the second half, Atletico started getting more in the game and started getting more opportunities. So,
yeah, this last sort of 5 minutes is probably the best we've seen from Atletico and the most under pressure Manchester United have been. But even then, it's not the sort of pressure we saw in that first game in the league phase. But that chance that Fantas Joyce, that save she just made, was by far Atletico's best chance of the game. But it's a little bit scrappy, but it's like United are still holding on to the ball, but they're just becoming a little bit more panicked, I think, in possession.
That attack right there, I think, just is what we don't like to see with Melvin Mallard. I think when you've got a 4-on-3, as United had there, you had Turlin peeling off to the left, Narson in the middle, Jess Park out to the right, and Mallard just kind of ran at the defender and just kind of hit a harsh shot straight at her chest. I think that's the indecision making that I was talking about in the first half, that she's got to try and eradicate out of her game a little bit, because you've got to do a lot. That's got to end in a shot on target for me. I think when you've got a 4-on-3 in that position, you've got to at least make the keeper work for it, not just kind of run down a blind alley almost and kind of create nothing from it.
Yeah, and take the opportunity too early. Sort of, she really panicked there. She made the wrong decision. She does have a tendency to do that sometimes when she's in a good position. She doesn't quite know what to do. Atletico are really trying to scream for as many free kicks as they can in this game. They're getting a couple, but it's
turning into quite an aggressive, scrappy game, as you just mentioned. They're really kind of, every time United player gets the ball with a kind of back to a player, they're right on them, kind of pressing right from behind as well. Like it's getting a bit feisty out there.
Yeah, it's the first. There's a lot of players going down. That was just a push on Gabby George. She goes down. I think because Atletico are pushing so hard to try and get a goal, and they're really trying to up the tempo. That's then rushing United when United are in possession. They need to get a little bit calmer and realize that they don't. They can afford to slow it down. And I think Atletico are just also trying to press a little bit more aggressively to try and win the ball back, to try and put United under pressure. And that is making it a little bit scrappy. There's a few kind of little niggly challenges going in as well. So it's going to be interesting how that plays out. We're nearly getting towards 20 minutes. Skinner doesn't look too nervy. They just showed him on the camera there. He looks fairly confident.
Oh, we're talking about being a feisty game. Jay Riviera is just absolutely. I can't work out which Atletico Madrid player that is, but absolutely flew into that. That's probably going to be a yellow. I'll be surprised if that's not a yellow card, to be honest.
Yeah, I thought that would definitely be a yellow. She's not happy about that. That is Ottoman, who's just come on. Yeah, she really flew into her. Doesn't look like she's been booked though.
No, and I think Zagossi's now just giving away a free kick as well, looking at what's just happened here.
Yeah, it looked like Atletico Madrid took the first free kick quickly, and then United gave away another free kick just a few seconds later. It's been a very stop-start last, where are we, 8 minutes of this game. And United, it does feel like they just need to stay focused and dig deep a little bit now, because
it seems like that's in the game plan from Atletico Madrid, to be honest, to try and make this a bit more scrappy. Don't let United have the ball on the ground, kind of moving it around as they were in the first half. Just kind of take the sting out of it, get a few more set pieces higher up the pitch, because they can be dangerous. I mentioned the height difference a bit earlier on.
I feel like that's what, obviously I know, again, that having 10 players changed it massively, but I feel like they did that more in the league phase game. They made it really scrappy, and there was, even though Janssen got sent off, there were a few occasions where, it really felt
that's another error from the United backline. That I don't quite know what's going on. It's an Atletico Madrid corner, but that has got. If I'm an Atletico Madrid fan right now, I would be fuming that has not been scored. It's a 2-on-1, and I'm not quite sure why she goes for the pass. She's got a clear line of goal with Fallon Joyce in front. I'm not entirely sure why, but
Jensen is through on goal. She's 1-on-1 with Fallon Joyce, and she decides to play the pass across. Maya Letitia intercepts it, and then another player has the follow-up shot, and it is blocked and goes out for a corner. But that was a real let-off, because United gave away the ball and allowed Jensen to be played in. Again, there's players going down on the box. Again, Atletico Madrid won a penalty. Referee says no. She's not interested in any of these penalty shouts. This time, it was the player that went down. Yeah, she wants a penalty there. I don't know who that was. Was it Lauren?
I think that Atletico Madrid chance comes from a mistake from Maya Letitia, and then Janssen not being able to clear her lines. It's similar to what we said in the first half, and I'm amazed that didn't go in. Like, at this level, I think that's got to be a goal from there. I think
that was by far their best opportunity of the whole game. Really, they'll be really disappointed they didn't get that goal. Are you starting to feel a little bit nervy now, Connor? Afterwards,
I don't think so. I think if it's
game?
one leg, then maybe. I think over two legs, I just don't see Atletico Madrid winning at LSV next Thursday. So I think there's another tackle that's just flew in, another booking. Who's that for?
That was a challenge on Zigiotti Olma by looks like, was it Sariegi? No, that is the substitute. I'm not keeping track of these numbers very well. Benitez. So a lot of late challenges. A lot of late challenges. Yeah, and that opportunity that comes from Atletico Madrid, the ball's sort of like bobbling up. It's a little bit pinball-y, and United just don't deal with it whatsoever.
Then United just nearly scored the strangest free kick. It was kind of a loft, kind of a high floating one into the middle there, and Zagotti's got her back to the ball, and it kind of hits the back of her heel, and kind of flicks up and kind of comfortable save in the end. But yeah, it's really turned to a scrappy, and then a poor kick from Valenzuela Joyce. It's a good half volley that kind of hits the roof of the net. This is turning into a really kind of messy game now. It's
really I was going to say messy is the ultimate word. It's so, there's no structure to it whatsoever. I think the referee's given a corner as well. I think she must think it's got a...
No, it's a goal kick.
I was given a goal kick. Okay, good. I was going to say, I think United need to calm down, try and slow the game down, and just frustrate them a little bit. We've got another double substitution and another blast from the WSL past, because Gio is going to be coming onto the pitch, also of Arsenal. Sariegi is coming off, and Gio is coming on. So yeah, that is a bit of a throwback.
You said before the game, you asked me the question about whether it was going to be like the first one, or whether it was, whether it's going to have that excitement and the drama and everything else. I think, barring a red card, I think it's certainly been more dramatic than the first one. But I think a big part of that is just because of the nature of the way the game's gone. It's just been scrappy in this second half in particular. The first half was kind of good flow and football from United, but this second half has been very kind of end-to-end mistakes on either side. No one really capitalized on it.
Yeah, this is the moment where everyone's sort of getting a little... There's a lot of sort of head loss and chaos on the pitch. But I don't know if we'll see the same sort of madness that we got in the last game. Although there are a couple of players who are on bookings who should probably be a little bit careful. From Manchester United perspective, or Vangerheim's come off, actually, so you're all right. Riviere never got that yellow card. She probably got away with that a little bit. So she's quite lucky. But the way the game's going, it could end up in getting to one of those scrappy moments. But maybe United are going to kill it off now. They're on the ball. Jess Park's on the right-hand side. She's getting into a little bit of a dead end there, but she's done well to try and hold on to it. It's not really getting much support, and it's gone back to Letitia, who kind of kicks it long. So Manchester United, they've got 15 minutes now to try and hold on and claim this 2-0 lead going into the second leg. Oh, it's so messy. It's so messy. And that's a deflected shot from Atletico Madrid that goes out for a corner. Yeah, it's getting messy.
It's kind of a half pass that deflects off Letitia into the path of the Atletico Madrid forward. Again, it's like messy is the word for this. It's just kind of loads of deflections kind of hitting everywhere, and just misplaced passes and timed. Yeah, which favours Atletico Madrid. Atletico Madrid have looked the strongest since the game has turned like this in the last kind of 15-20 minutes or so.
Yeah, this sort of game scenario definitely suits them. A really good claim from Valenzuela Joyce from that corner, and she should just try and slow it down there. But I guess for Atletico Madrid, it's give them a little bit of a blueprint for the second leg if they want to try and get something from the game, just to try and see if they can kind of rattle Manchester United a little bit more, cause some more problems, disrupt them a little bit, because we just didn't see that at all in the first half. United just looked really comfortable on the ball, apart from those own mistakes that they were sort of creating. Atletico are moving it a lot faster as well, which I think is making it more difficult for United to get back into shape. And they're United are just turning it over really easily as well. And losing Sandberg makes a difference. Obviously, Narsland's now come on. Do you think Skinner will look to make another change, Connor, in these next couple of minutes? We're creeping towards the last 10 minutes.
I'm surprised we've not seen Leah Schuller, to be honest. You're coming up to 70. My time's obscured. I can't actually. Was that 76?
Yeah.
76 minutes, well, 77 now, kind of minutes, and you got Leah Schuller on the bench, not even warming up, really, kind of coming on. You've got other players on the bench. Wujo as well would add a bit of energy and something physicality as well in there. I'm surprised we've not seen more, to be honest. Come off from the bench. Even you're looking at the likes of, he's never going to take Letitia off, but you're looking at Janssen. You've got Millie Turner on the bench. Janssen's struggled a little bit in this game. Would you make that change? I'm not too sure. You could even go for a back five if you really want to and start really solidifying the lead. If Atletico score before the end of this game and it goes to 2-1, next week is going to be incredibly nervy, I think. Although United will have the advantage, I think, having just played London City, as I said, on Sunday, by the time next week comes around, and then they play Chelsea 3 days after that as well in the FA Cup, that's going to be really tough to get over the line in that one. Whereas 2-0, I think, will be relatively straightforward, I think, next Thursday. But 2-1, or even 2-all, never know, it could be difficult.
I feel like as a manager, though, you don't want to make that defensive change and move to a back five because that signals that you're stressed. I think that basically and it forces you to sit so deep that I think you just invite too much pressure if you were going to do bring on Millie Turner, let's say now, and sit really deep. I feel like you're just inviting the most stressful last 10 minutes of your life.
I think it depends on how you set the five up, because you can do a back five but make it into a three. So you put Riviere and Gabby George kind of
as pushing high.
High wing back. I say that as Gabby George is kind of out of position on the left side. He's kind of been caught, kind of headed away. Again, United are dealing with the crosses to a point. They're kind of heading it out of the area, but it's not really with any conviction, and it's just coming straight back. The last kind of 10, 15 minutes or so.
And what's really interesting is it's part the substitutions that Atletico have made and the energy that they've brought on, but they're pretty much getting first to every ball at the moment. In the first half and even the first 10 minutes of the second half, you couldn't really say that they were winning any duels particularly. They weren't really great in those situations, but since they've made those changes and they obviously smell a goal, they are getting first to every single ball. They're really fighting and scrapping now, which you just didn't really see much of that in the first sort of 55 minutes, but they definitely sense that they can try and get something from this game. So we're in the 80th minute now. And again, it's just a poor goal kick from Valentine's Joyce, which isn't her strength. And United nearly lose it, but hold on to the ball. And Mallard tries to create something of it before it's turned over. But lots of bodies on the line for Atletico Madrid. And is this going to be the third goal? No, Turland can't get it under control after Mallard's cross. But United still got the ball. That's kind of...
This is nice play from Melvin Mallard off the left. And Zigotti pushing forward. That's a brilliant goal.
Great goal. Great goal.
Absolutely
for the third.
Finish. That's Zigotti's fourth goal in 6, I want to say. And I don't want to speak ahead of turn, I think that is probably the tie one, I would say. I can't see Atletico Madrid scoring 3 goals next Thursday.
Yeah, they really needed that, because that's just absolutely taken the sting out of the tie, taken the sting out of the game and the clock as well. Just when Atletico was starting to build, get a bit of rhythm, unsettling United were panicking a little bit. They do really well. I think what was important about that goal is they just kept recycling the ball and kept the phases of play going. So originally, there are a couple of shots. The shots got blocked by Atletico Madrid. Then the ball comes out to Mal on the left-hand side. She plays the cross to Turland. Turland can't get there. Then it ends up back with Mallard. She sets up Zigiotti Elma, and that's a brilliant finish. And I think that was the first time in about 20 minutes that we've seen United be able to hold onto the ball and keep trying to create and keep trying to problem solve. A lot of it just being turn over the ball, try and react and panic again a little bit, or run back towards goal. It was good to see them try and create something still then and not just turn over the ball straight away. And yeah, I mean, Shabon's just put in the chat as well. I think that's the tie done. You would be, I mean, if they don't hold out at LSV, Connor, I think there'd be a serious investigation into if the tie was thrown away off the back of that. And we've now seen Jess Park be able to get a little bit of rest. Simi Awujo's coming on, which is an important substitution to make.
You said about like there being investigation. I can't actually remember the last time. I might have been stupid. Oh yeah, I am being stupid. Ignore me. I was going to say I can't remember the last time United have conceded 3 at home at LSV
against Spurs.
Yes, and it was also against Lyon in the Champions League. So it has happened twice this season alone. So maybe.
But I think the Spurs game is even more interesting because obviously it was that whole back and forth of it all as well, which is an extra layer of chaos. Whereas obviously Lyon game, it was almost like, it was a tough one to sort of get settled in the first place. But the Spurs game was just like pure chaos. But yeah, Simi Awujo on. And we're into the last 7 minutes of the game. And now they just want to make sure that everyone gets back in one piece.
I don't know whether I'm missing something here. We need the cameras to pan over. This is just such a minor detail that I've just had a look at. Is Dominic Janssen wearing the captain's armband?
Mel Letitia was wearing it, I'm pretty sure.
I don't know whether I'm just being...
But I know what you mean. It does. It did look like. I'm pretty sure Mel Letitia was wearing it earlier. But now it does look like.
I don't know what could you swap captains mid game. I don't even know whether that's allowed.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I didn't pick up on that, but I'm pretty sure I saw Mel Letitia wearing it earlier.
It's only because someone else in the stadium has just messaged me the same thing, saying, "Why has Dom got the captain's armband on?" She has. Maya's not got it on her arms. I wonder.
But I'm pretty sure. I mean, I can rewind to check, but I'm pretty sure not long ago I saw Mel Letitia wearing that armband. So it looks like they've just literally switched, which does seem a bit strange, but maybe is Letitia about to go off? So it's in preparation for that?
Potentially.
But it's quite rare that she would come off in a game unless they're really worried about her minutes and her red zone, etc. But it's pretty rare that they make that change at the back. But that does seem strange. Doesn't look like there's anyone warming up either. So we've got 6 minutes left. And probably a little bit of stoppage time, although we haven't had that many injuries in the second half. Manchester United doing well to just kind of take the sting out of this last little section. And all that fight that Atletico had in that brief 15-20 minute period has kind of disappeared a little bit. Although United still causing a few problems of their own making. Do you think we'll see another substitution that'll be their last ability to make a change? Oh, that's a good save from Fallon Tullis-Joyce. Just quickly called into action. Gio with an effort. Oh, I think Fallon Tullis-Joyce is saying she didn't touch it. The referee's given a corner, but it sort of bounced across the front of her.
I do think from Atletico Madrid point of view, they'll probably look back at some of these missed opportunities in the second half. Because you think if they score one of those that goes to 2-1, that's a Gossi goal, probably then doesn't happen. It's a completely different tie. Then United go up the other end, score, it's 3-0, and that's probably the tie done. It's those fine margins that you talk about. That free kick goes in, that hit the bar, the one-on-one that they had that kind of played it across. Either one of those go in, it's a completely different outlook on the tie. Whereas now United can go into the game next Thursday with just knowing that they don't probably need to go full energy into it because they can afford to concede 1, maybe 2, and knowing that they can score at the other end as well and get the job done. So
yeah, it's ended up pretty one-sided tie.
I say that as Atletico Madrid have another opportunity from a set piece, kind of played in from the corner, and it's kind of again last-ditch defending, like in the league phase game from Gabby George, to knock it behind for another corner. But that's another opportunity, right? This is exactly what I'm talking about. 6 yards out, Tullis Joyce kind of makes a bit of a mess of it. Kind of comes off her chest back into play. I'm amazed Atletico Madrid scored, not scored.
How did that not go in? It looked like it was literally just about to kind of roll into the back of the net, and Gabby George somehow kicked it out of play. But yeah, it looked like Fallon Tullis Joyce came for it and then sort of missed it, and it rolled underneath her, but it didn't roll into the back of the net. Oh yeah, she went to sort of try and punch it, and it just sort of dropped, and luckily Gabby George came in and intercepted it. Not long now to go for Manchester United. Two minutes left. And the ball's in Atletico Madrid's half anyway, so they're going to probably try and keep it in the corner if they can. Perhaps one last substitution to eat a bit of the clock. Good cross from Riviere, cleared by Atletico. And there's lots of space because Manchester United have actually committed quite a few players forward. And this is a brilliant run.
I've been really distracted by this captaincy switch, I really hope someone asks in the post-match what that's about. I don't think of all the hundreds, maybe thousands of football games I've watched, I have never seen a captaincy swapped mid-game where the player's not gone off.
I do wonder why they did that. It's very strange. Let's have a look on the Manchester United social media. So here you go. This is a picture of Janssen earlier in the game, not wearing the armband.
So it's definitely been in the second half.
Yeah. How bizarre. Because I definitely remember Letitia wearing it when the game started. And even at the start of the second half as well. Maybe it was a communication thing with the referee.
Potentially, actually, yeah.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe Janssen speaks, well, it wouldn't be Spanish because they wouldn't have a Spanish referee, but maybe there's better communication. It does seem strange.
That's the one thing I'm going to take away from this game.
Yeah, that's the one. Your one note is just going to be Janssen captain switch, ? Okay, we're creeping into the 90th, so we'll see how much added time there is. There's been so much action in and around United's box in this second half. And yeah, I mean, we'll try and find what the XG is at the end of the game. But Atletico have created a decent amount in this second half.
Yeah, so far, Atletico have had 56 to United's 44 in terms of possession, 7 and 6 shots. So pretty even shots-wise. 3-2 on target. So again, pretty even. Atletico has 7 corners to United's 2 in the second half alone.
Is set pieces been a stress for you this season? I do feel like across the WSL there's a bit of a epidemic on inability to defend set pieces, but I don't know if that's something you felt like Manchester United have struggled with.
Yeah, like a lot this season. I don't quite know the reasons as to why. My assumption has always been United have kind of switched to more of a zonal marking system this season, and it's just not worked. They can defend the first ball fine, but the second ball, United have conceded so many goals just from the second ball from a set piece or a cross. And usually it's because it's headed away and the players are kind of still stood in their zones because it's so regimented that zonal marking is. You've got to stay in your zones, that they're then too slow to get out to the player that's got the second ball and conceding goals from that. So yeah, defending set pieces have been a big worry from a United point of view all season, really. That's been from the first couple of games all the way through to now. You could go all the way back to the SK Brand qualifying game. The goal that was conceded in the away game was a set piece for that very reason. Just not understanding the roles properly as Madrid get another save from Tullis Joyce. It's one of those games, as I said, I'll look back and think, how have Madrid not scored? At least one.
At least one. They do kind of deserve that. And they'll be really frustrated not to get it when it was 2-0 because, that probably would have really changed the dynamic of the game and changed that second leg for them because they would have gone there feeling like, okay, we can really still fight for something. But as it stands, of course, they'll think we can still get something. I mean, look at what Arsenal managed to do last season, albeit it was 2-0 against Real Madrid, but they did manage to really flip that game on its head. If you get an early goal, it can really change things. But they've played really well in this last half an hour, 40 minutes, and not had anything to show for it, which is, pretty disappointing from their point of view. And maybe a little bit worrying from a Manchester United point of view, because in another game, the match could have maybe kind of slipped away for them.
Yeah, and I think that we spoke right at the start of this, though, about taking your chances and being... I don't think United have been defensively as strong as the league phase game, but potentially another clean sheet. And at the end of the day, in the Champions League, you just want to get over the line. I think if you asked any Arsenal fan how last season went in that final, did they play their absolute best football to win the Champions League? No, of course they didn't. But they ended up with the trophy. And in knockout football, that's all you need to do. The league is where you start seeing you need that consistency of play and everything else. But it's a good start. If United can hold on to this clean sheet, as I said, that block of 5 games, starting with Leicester, that'll be a 2-0 win there, a 3-0 win potentially here, 2 away games. You go into London City on Sunday with confidence that you can score and keep a clean sheet as well.
Yeah, so we're into the last sort of 30 seconds of the 4 minutes of added time. Connor, as we wait for the final whistle, just give me your final thoughts on performance tonight, thinking about going into that second leg, because you must be pretty pleased. Like, first ever knockout game, 3-0 lead going into the second leg. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and it's the fact, again, the goals are coming from 3 different players. It's not just one player that it's reliant on. You've got Mallard, you've got Turley, you've got Zigotti. Again, Zigotti's goal scoring form has been incredible in recent weeks. I said towards the start of the season, once she gets one, she'll get loads, because she was hitting the post. She was having so many, forcing really good saves, and finally she's getting the goals now. So that's good to see. But I think it just sums up United's season. It's not been pretty all the time, as that's the full-time whistle. But at the end of the day, United have got over the line again and have won another game on the road in the Champions League, relatively comfortable, not conceding a goal. And it will set them up nicely for next Thursday, which I think can take a bit of the pressure off now, because there could have been pressure on that game. There now isn't, I don't think, from a United point of view. So without getting too kind of ahead of myself and themselves, I'm sure they'll have one eye on Bayern now. Not even Bayern, maybe the Chelsea game, and then looking at Bayern after the international break. But certainly for this game, that was a better performance than I think I was expecting overall. Don't get me wrong, there's some mistakes and some scrappiness in there, but that's just what Atletico Madrid wanted to do. They forced that kind of game. But United rode it out and didn't concede. So overall, pretty impressed with that.
Oh, do you want to pick a player of the match?
Have I got the responsibility of this? I think I will go for Melvin Mallard, actually. I think she got the assist, obviously, for the Zigotti one. She got the goal as well. I thought her overall play was exceptional. So, yeah, and drove United forward. I mentioned about Jess Park doing it earlier, but Mallard did exactly the same in this game, pushing the team on and really kind of offering an outlet on the left side where United maybe haven't looked as strong in recent years, whereas this season they look a lot better. So I'll go for Mallard. In this one, Zigotti's a close second, I think.
Yeah, I think Ziggy would maybe be my choice, but I think overall, very strong team performance, especially from the forward line. There were some nervy moments from that back line, but the forward line, Turland and Mallard looked brilliant, and Ziggy Otomo and Jess Park played their part as well. So, yeah, solid 3-0 advantage for Manchester United heading into that second leg next week. Connor, thanks a lot for joining me, and I'm sure we'll be back with another Manchester United chat soon. And thank you to everyone that joined in the chat. We had so many brilliant questions. I know a lot of you know Connor from the All for United universe, so appreciate you coming and joining the Cutback chat. We're going to be doing more of these live streams coming across the next few weeks and the rest of the season, so make sure you join in, and we will see you all very soon.